As promised, we get right to it. Democratic strategist, co-host of the Politics War Room podcast, a veteran of many a campaign, perhaps too many campaigns, some would say. James Carville, you've been around the block. Welcome back.
Yeah, a lot of blocks I've been around. All right, thanks for having me.
We'll take your full shot to tell us, where are you? What are we seeing behind you?
You're seeing Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, a place that was devastated by Hurricane Katrina in 2005, and that's my place out here at Peak Mountain's old place, and about 60 miles east of New Orleans. And I come out here when I get a chance for a little respite. I love it out here. Thank you.
All right. Well, a little bit of, local business. We see the flag waving behind you. I just showed what some candidates, some voters are saying. What do you see as the top issue, given the mobilization turnout I just mentioned? A lot of liberals and others, moderates and others, and women's rights advocates excited by the Supreme Court, but others saying, oh, lately the economy, something you've always prioritized, might be hurting the Democrats.
Well, I've seldom disagreed with President Biden, but I do disagree. They do have a plan. And Kevin McCarthy has told you what their plan is if they get power. They will shut the government. He says this. They will shut the government down to force cuts to Social Security and Medicare. Well, let's talk about the economy. Let's talk about senior citizens who are dealing with inflation. Do you really want to shut the government down that would adversely affect the economy for everybody in the United States? And at this time, do you really want cuts in Social Security and Medicare? I don't think you do. And I will tell these Democratic campaigns this right to your face. When you get a gift like this, you take it and you bring this home and you drive it. You drive it hard and you drive it exclusively. They have told us their plan. We now know what it is. They're in the open. Let's go get them.
So you're saying flip it, make it a referendum on the few things they have said they might do.
Yes, Kevin McCarthy, with a little more than 2 weeks to go in the election, publicly said, what we're going to do is shut the government down to force cuts to Social Security and Medicare. They had 4 prospective members of the Budget Committee say exactly the same thing. Rick Scott is the head of the Senate committee, is pushing this. They've tried to do it since the 1960s when Reagan called Medicare Social Security. The Democrats need to have the discipline. Yeah, you want to talk about the economy? I will talk about the economy. You're a senior citizen. You're on a fixed income. They want to cut this. If you're a young person, they want to shut the government down and destroy the economy in this country. And that is not what we need at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you mentioned, and we've covered this on the program, you had some of the political machinations of folks like McConnell saying, trust us, we'll tell you later. But then, as you said, you have others saying, no, we're out here planning to cut benefits, et cetera. I want to get you on the prognostication because Howard Dean, who you've known for some time, he's more bullish. He might be more bullish than you. And that's a big statement, James. Here's what he told us. Take a listen. Wait. Here's what he said, and then I'll let you respond.
All right. I'll make this prediction right now. We'll pick up 2 to 3 in the Senate. And we're going to pick up the House, pick up seats in the House, not lose them. I think we'll take 2 seats more than we have today in the House.
James, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Governor Dean, I agree with you if we execute an obvious strategy that is right in front of us. But if we keep this kind of NPR foundation strategy of identity left politics, we're going to lose. If we pick up the banner and say they have a plan and this is their plan, you didn't believe them when they told you that they would overturn Roe. Guess what? They did. You better believe them when they tell you they want to get rid of Social Security and Medicare, because they do. And I will agree with the governor if these Democrats have the discipline and the common sense to drive these issues home.
How do you define the NPR politics, as you put it, that you're warning against?
Well, I define it in the spring of 2021 when I wrote a piece in the Wall Street Journal saying the Democrats need to own the crime issue or the crime issue will own you. Well, people said, well, you can't do that because there'll be a big backlash. Okay, you didn't own it, and guess what? It's a big problem for Democrats. I'm telling the same elite coastal people, forget everything. We are going to advertise and push the fact that they want to throw people off of Medicare and Social Security, and they want to shut the government down to do it. And that's how you win. We should have grabbed the crime issue back in the spring of 2021, but, we got to listen to these foundation NPR types, which is always a disaster.
Well, you know, one thing about you, James, and the way you speak clearly on campaign issues is you're talking about driving issue, driving policy, driving values, make them respond. People might quibble with you about some of this, and it's a big tent. Here on the beat, it's a big tent, but you're talking about driving the message rather than being reactive, which is something that some Democrats are sometimes accused of. I want to play for you Barack Obama, who's back out on the trail, as you know. He's trying to hit youth vote. He's trying to keep it a little fun and joyous amidst all of the horrors that people are going through. I don't know if you've seen it yet or if our viewers have seen it. A brand new video targeting the youth vote. Here it is.
My name's Barack Obama. I was the 44th president of the United States, and I have the best jump shot in White House history. I've heard a lot recently about how voting doesn't solve everything, and I can see why you might think that. It won't make Outer Banks or Euphoria Season 3 or Rihanna's new album drop any faster. It won't even help you understand the most complicated questions in the universe, like, why do I know so much about Pete Davidson's dating life? But here's what voting does do. It allows you to make your voice heard on the big issues. Make sure you're registered to vote at vote.org/Obama, and then go vote.
Obama right there in the website address, Prime Book. And my question for you, when we look at this era, if we zoom out a little bit, James, Joe Biden actually exists here in this Obama, Trump, now Biden sandwich. What do you make of the unusual presence of these two former presidents? Trump seems to be boxing in the Republican message at times. He's certainly been in the headlines. Obama coming out with a bit of a more uplifting or joyous message while telling Democrats not to be buzzkills, et cetera. We actually have his former speechwriter on later. But your view on all of that?
Well, I think President Obama is doing a wonderful thing, and he has a connection and an understanding of young people that, frankly, I don't have and I don't try to. And I think his use of humor and cultural touchstones is very effective. I mean, my job is a little bit different. I would like to instill more discipline and focus in these campaigns coming down the stretch. And, you know, if we're to salvage this election and do pretty good, it's going to take a lot of people fulfilling a lot of different roles and doing what they can do best. President Obama can do things that no one else in the Democratic Party or, frankly, the United States can do. And it's an interesting contrast between his message of kind of humor and trying to bring people in and vote and Trump's just dark, relentlessly polarizing message. So I hope President Obama's stuff is effective. I like what I saw.
Yeah. We showed a little bit of Biden earlier. I want to show some of the headwinds here against the Biden administration and the Democrats, at least in the numbers, and the numbers shift. We all know this. But if you just look writ large at a question like who do you trust more right now on the economy, Republicans have over a 10-point edge. I would note a good chunk of the country says the heck with it, neither of them. But the question to, I guess, the Biden White House and to you as a stand-in, if you don't mind being one, why would your party and the Democrats be trailing Republicans on the economy right now? Is that a substantive problem, a messaging one, or both?
Well, we've had a message problem. We have a message opportunity. If you took the same poll, and a good pollster would say, now, let me point out a fact to you. The Republican Party wants to shut the government down, which would destroy the economy, in order to cripple seniors by substantial cuts to Social Security and Medicare. Now, who do you think is better on the economy? I can tell you it would be a substantial Democratic lead. And what these Democratic campaigns need to understand is you're not stuck with the numbers today. You have 2 weeks. You have 2 weeks to drive this home. Don't waste time with foolishness. Drive this message home as hard as you can. That's what I would say. That we have a good we have some gas left in this tank.
Well, people listen to you. I happen to know the current president has been known to listen to you. So it's interesting getting your unvarnished views in public. You mentioned foolishness. I saved the most foolish thing for last, and that is the trials and tribulations of Senator Ted Cruz. Again, talk about issues. I will be the first to say, not the top issue, not the first or second question, but we're not going to let you get out of here before I read from this. Is new independent reporting. Ted Cruz hid in a supply closet during the insurrection, assembled a coalition in the back room, a supply closet to discuss what to do. Several members argued we should suspend our objections and vote to certify. And he says, aware of the irony or not, James, and that's where the joke becomes serious, I vehemently disagreed with the idea that under armed insurrection attack, he should do anything other than double down on the lies that help partially feed the insurrection. And I will say carefully as a journalist, James, the courts and others can determine whether he's directly linked to that violence or not. But he certainly is linked to the lie. What do you think of Ted hiding in the closet, or any other view you have?
Exactly what I would think of a human being when someone called his wife a hag and his daddy a murderer, and he goes hat in hand, stooped over at a 45-degree angle. Okay? Of course he's in a closet. He's one of the most cowardly people in the history of modern politics. I mean, are we really surprised that Ted Cruz would be anywhere else other than cowering in a closet during something like this? Of course not. He doesn't even he won't even stand up for his own wife or his own dad. What do you expect?
There you have it. James Carville, not surprised, but willing to weigh in. I hope I can hear from you at least one more time before the official election day. I appreciate you kicking us off tonight, James.
You can get me anytime. Thank you, Ari. Thank you a lot.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber. Thanks for watching The Beat. I wanted to let you know I'm writing a foreword to the January 6th committee's full report, which is coming out soon from HarperCollins. You can go pre-order the book right now, and it'll come to you first when the report comes out in the fall or whenever the government releases it. Just search Melber Jan 6th on Amazon or your favorite independent book site and click pre-order. You'll be the first to get both the report and my new piece on the coup conspiracy. You can also go to melberbook.com and order it there.